Ladies and gentlemen, get ready to embark on a journey like no other. Welcome to the Glum Lot Podcast,
your go-to destination for a unique blend of recovery and discovery.
I'm Brett.
And I'm Mark. And in this podcast, we will endeavor to create a safe and uplifting space for our guests and listeners to share their stories with sincerity and a touch of humor.
Remember, we are not a Glum Lot. The Glum Lot Podcast is more than just a source of entertainment. It's a beacon of hope, proving that even in the darkest moments, recovery is possible. Every story we share carries the power to inspire positive change.
So buckle up, get ready to listen, and join us in discovering the strength that lies within every individual's journey. This is the Glum Lot Podcast, where humor meets hope. All right, we are here for episode 65 of the Glum Lot Podcast with your friend Brett and your pal Mark.
Yes.
So, Brett, did you have anything on your mind today?
I did.
What's that?
When I got through the 12 steps, and the more that I read the big book and I had an experience with somebody that read through it with me, I thought I knew everything. And I ended up being a little bit of a prophet and a saint and kind of a preacher.
Kind of a bit of a prick.
Yeah, that kind of works along with it.
I've heard that in the rooms before. People kind of come off as a bit of a prick.
Yeah, I felt so empowered that, man, people got to hear the word.
Yeah.
Right?
But, it really depends on how you tell it.
Right.
Whether it's going to land or not. Right.
And then I became intolerant of things. Right?
Yeah.
And so, well, man, if you're dealing with that, you need to do this. And it didn't work. I got called out on that shit.
Yeah.
And I even got caught into the fact that I felt better than in meetings sometimes.
Yeah. I think we all have a bit of that from time to time. But, it is really about sharing your own experience, strength, and hope.
Yeah.
And, part of that experience can be, I read this in the big book. That's part of your experience.
Right.
But as soon as you start saying you.
Coming from
you
me.
You should, you better. To me, and I've heard it at meetings when people do that, it's cringy for me. I'm like, oh, shit, here it comes.
And that's what the 12 traditions helps us prevent, right?
Yeah.
Because that anonymity, we don't want to take the credit and start teaching the AA thing. It's not me, it's AA.
Yeah.
It's not me.
Right, I can't take credit for any
of
it.
And we experienced this today in a meeting. There was a gentleman that just was over the top.
Preachy?
Oh, yeah. And at one point he said something that was extremely inflammatory to somebody.
Yeah.
And it was the person next to that person was really struggling. And what ended up happening was he said something that could probably very much have almost killed this woman because of her, she had tendencies for self-harm. And so when he was, just from the altar and, or the whatever that thing is called, it was toxic and not good.
Pulpit.
Thank you. The pulpit.
The pulpit.
I like orange juice with lots of pulpit. But anyway,
I know exactly what you're saying.
It's easy though.
And
our egos, right?
What's great when my first year in AA, my sponsor was very soft spoken, and he spoke kind of slow, and it kind of bugged me at first that he spoke so slow. But he was very careful in the way he worded things, and that's why he spoke slowly. But he would always say, "For me,"
right,
or "Well, and he always told me, as soon as you hear the word "you," a lot of people are just like, "Fuck you."
Again, that's a leadership principle too. As soon as we start saying "you better," "you oughta," and all that.
So I guess the message is carry the message, not the mess.
And humility.
Humility, keep the ego out of it, and remember, you're not AA.
Nope.
You are just a person who is getting sober in AA. So share that.
Absolutely.
And the message will land better, right? So anyway, we have a guest today who you surprised me with.
Yeah.
And I am really excited about this.
Yeah, big influence in my sobriety.
A great guy with a great story, fantastic message. Every time he's at a meeting, he delivers, never uses the word you. And a lot of people in this program have been helped by him and look up to him.
Yeah,
and I think
including
that's great.
moi.
Yeah. So without further ado, we'd like to welcome John.
John.
Welcome to the Glum Lot Podcast, John.
Hey, John.
Hello, team.
So glad you're here, and it was such a pleasant surprise to see you get out of the car, because Brett wouldn't tell me who it was.
Oh, and it was a
And,
surprise to me. Right during one of our episodes, I was like, "Oh my gosh,
Fantastic.
He's saying he's coming
That is
over."
fantastic.
I'm a longtime fan.
Yeah,
Yeah?
I really enjoy the show.
Okay,
I
great.
yeah, perfect.
Well, now you'll be part of it. So
That's right.
We'd like to start with your sobriety date.
The current one I have is 10/9/95.
Okay.
Oh, man.
There's just a few before that.
There was.
Yeah, I get it.
Man, we're
Me
gonna be
too.
coming up
So-
on
Yep.
30 years soon.
I cannot stay sober by myself.
Here it is.
Did you prove it?
I proved it.
There it is.
Good. So we like to go back and start at the beginning from the first time you experienced drugs and alcohol, or either, and what it was like for you.
All the details.
Yeah. I got thinking of these, because my grandpa had a farm.
Yeah.
And he'd make his own stuff, and he'd be like, if you're old enough to work,
You're old enough to
you're
drink?
old enough to drink.
Ah,
So, so I always wanted to be like Grandpa, and it was, my cousins were older. And so early on, I'd go up to the farm and do farm work, so. But that wasn't really the first time, but
Okay.
it was like leading up to it because I
Yeah.
watched all the teenagers at that time. They were drinking, and all my cousins and stuff. And so one of my friends, I got a pony pack of Miller and went down by the big creek.
And if I can just interject here for the listener, for the
pony
younger
pack.
listener, a pony pack is they were small 8-ounce bottles of Miller. They came in like these little short vat bottles,
Yeah.
in an
Oh.
8-pack, and we used
In
to
an
love
8-pack.
those when we were young.
okay. So like,
Yeah.
I know Red Stripes were those little short.
Yeah.
little
No, these were
barrel-
actually a little bit smaller. They were
Really?
clear, but when you got the 8-pack of,
Yeah.
ponies, it was kind of cool.
Yeah, I
You
can
felt
see
real
that.
Yeah, so it was a
with
little
Yeah.
sneaky getting down
Yeah,
there.
right.
He had a couple, and I finished them. So
Nice.
I don't think I got wasted, but
Did you catch a buzz?
I think so.
Yeah. Do you remember how it felt? And it was just
Yeah,
pleasant.
it was pretty good.
Yeah. Enough to make you come back.
Yeah, I didn't know it now or then, but through my life, I always wanted to be good as, and I think that just made me feel normal,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep,
sure.
as
yep,
good
yep.
as.
So from there, what happens with you and your relationship with booze?
It was kind of around 8th grade. This what kills me is because I got grandkids that are
Right.
higher than that.
Yeah.
And so, we started partying and going down to, just always sneaking,
Sure.
And finally, my parents are not alcoholics, My mom is now deceased, but I think it skipped a generation.
So you didn't grow up in an alcoholic household?
There was push ball and fire department and all the, sink a boat back when that you could do that,
Okay.
You would, point
So
the...
you were in the environment.
So we're in the environment with all, and I always, if you put someone around me that I think is cool and they're drinking,
Right.
You're going to be drinking too?
I
Yeah.
want to be like that.
Yeah, so that was...
Yeah. So did you start drinking to somewhat excess from the start? Like you would drink to catch a buzz?
Yeah, drink to catch a buzz,
Right,
and
right.
I really can't remember when I, smoked weed, but, I took driver's ed because I'm like one of the oldest in my class in high school, so I took driver's ed with the seniors and the juniors, and I was a sophomore, and all those guys are burnouts.
Yeah.
So somewhere along the line, I was like, these guys are cool, and, but I was also an athlete, and and a very good student,
Oh yeah.
And so he said, I like when Dick C says, highly intelligent person that can screw myself out of anything.
Sure.
Right.
And so your use of alcohol and or pot at the time seems pretty normal, right? Like everybody's doing it.
Yeah, everyone's doing
Yeah,
it.
it's a high school experience.
Athletic director used to travel around and look for our parties, and we'd be like looking behind a tree, like, here he comes, and it was just crazy.
It was like hide and seek.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
it was really
And just for
obscure.
the listener, John and I went to the same high school. He was younger than me. But all these things he's talking about, I know because
You're
I
familiar.
experienced them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so your high school career, you had great success, I know. You were valedictorian of your class, right?
I was a couple back, so
Oh, okay.
I graduated third, but I
Okay.
figured if I wasn't
He
burnt,
was just a Torian.
Okay. Yeah. What is it?
He was just a Torian.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah, the Tory.
I sat next to the smartest guys in the school.
Yeah, rubbed off.
But I really was, I really did well in school
Yeah.
all the way through. So
So drinking and smoking a little pot here and there had no effect on your schoolwork, really. You were pretty successful.
But I think, looking back, if I would have just not done it that much, I probably would have studied a little more.
Yeah.
I was always a teacher pleaser and a
Okay.
people pleaser.
Yeah.
So I would do, and so it just killed me. My senior year, I had senioritis in 11th grade. It was already started off.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
It was terrible. So now we have kids at it.
Yeah,
over
right.
that, but
So you get out of high school. What do you do?
well, I went to a local college, and there it was because I don't even know why I went there. It was just
The next thing.
It was it was close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not too far, but just far enough.
Does your drinking pick up?
Yeah, that's the year. And I graduated in '84. And in '85 they changed the drinking age to 19.
Yes.
And I was 19. In '86 they changed it to 21, so I couldn't drink.
Man, that was
yeah.
that's nasty.
And you know something? I was a bartender then. And people would come in one day, drink legally, and the next day they couldn't drink legally.
Right? I mean,
And I
what
was,
is that?
but as a drunk bartender, I was like, I don't give a shit. You were here before. You're
That's
fine.
right.
Yeah, and back then my dad used to work at night, and he, I was the oldest son, and my sister was 3.5 years older than me, and she always worked at the bars, so I could get in the bars like in 10th grade, 11th
the
grade.
hookup.
And it was just like Dad worked nights, so I'd be like, Dad, drop me off at the place, and he would.
Just to hang out with your sister.
And so it was really no blame on him, but there was no trouble until later,
Okay.
so no
Yeah.
trouble, good grades, and we were on a couple state championship, teams, and good athlete, but I still remember, New York City.
What was your sport?
Well, I love baseball, and football and basketball. But one year the football team didn't have enough guys, so we all ran cross country. And they had through the 70s and 80s, they had a dominant team.
Right.
So when you take all the guys from football that didn't have football, and they were really good athletes, and the coach was superb at the time. And he ran us, and that gave me a work ethic. I love work, so you put me in that work ethic, and so we were 2-time state champions. And we came just short of winning the federation because we were partying real hard the night before.
No shit.
So,
As cross-country runners?
Yeah.
Oh, my
yeah.
God. What a recipe for disaster that
Yeah,
is.
it was bad.
Yeah.
And I could tell you some of the guys, but that,
Now
not
we're
on
going
the
to
show.
go there.
And, it was just a great, it's like 7 guys go through, and 1, 2, 3 were like 1st, 5th, 8th, and then the 4th and 5th guy had to come in a certain place. And then, if I was 6th or 7th man, my job was to beat the 5th guy of the other schools. So
you get your point totals in line.
Yeah,
and you win, right?
the less points win.
Yeah,
And so you give us a goal like that, and then we'd had all kinds of strategy. So whatever you do in life, you can pull it back and say, hey, these were good principles to carry through into my
sure.
AA.
So you're in college. Your drinking is not out of hand, right?
No, it went way out of hand.
Did it?
Where,
Oh.
yeah.
Tell us about it. Tell us
I was
tell us
like,
about
hey,
that.
the guys were like, hey, you live a half hour from here. Can you get some stuff? I'm like, yeah, So, I would be running some stuff, having my own for free, and that was a recipe for disaster.
No, was that pot?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about alcohol?
Alcohol, that was my thing of choice.
Yeah.
That's why I don't say cross addicted. I'm not addicted to crosses. But that was a thing in the 80s. But I'm an alcoholic. So my grandpa was, and in further in the episode, I could say now my dad. My dad's whole family is plagued with it.
Yeah.
But he did a DNA test at age 79, just 4 years ago, and I found out who my real grandpa is, on that side, and there's a whole plague, of he was a square dancing caller, and
Dang, your partner around and round,
right.
promenade.
And he knocked up grandma, and then I just went and visited my uncle in Ocala last weekend.
Holy shit!
Wow.
dude.
Yeah, and horseback riding with my son.
Boy, that DNA testing thing's fucking crazy, isn't it?
Yeah,
The stuff that's
it's
revealing.
crazy.
People are finding out they have kids they never knew about, and it's nuts.
So the drinking was going on.
Drinking was going on. I lasted 2 years at the one school. I heard somebody else that everybody that I drank with that I looked up to, if they could do it, I could do it. Right. So somebody was an electrician. I go, I'll just go to that.
Oh, okay.
I started doing that. Then I was like, then I get, shiny coin over here. And I'm like, I'll go over here and do that. So at one point, the company I was working for paid for my school. And so I ended up at, one of the bigger schools around here. And I remember when they called me up and said, we're not paying for that no more. And I was like, it was a lot of money. So,
yeah.
That was
a result of?
Just that they found out that I was going to that school. I think it just finally took.
So the paper trail and the money finally caught up to.
Yeah, I was just like, hey, I'll just go to that school. You know?
Then they were like, wait a minute, we don't approve of this. It's too expensive.
Yeah, so I was always good to find out. And that's good in business today. Or I'm a good negotiator, and I found not a BS artist But I when I go speak and I'm like, hey, if you can sell weed, you can sell cars. Don't give me this happy horse shit that you can't work.
Right.
And it just drives me nuts. But that's my own character defect is when stuff drives me nuts.
Yeah.
But so because I was when I was on the farm, I was going to market, and Grandma would always have me sell, and she'd pay me cookies, and then I started getting money, and I would so money didn't become my god, but it was there. Like I always wanted to be successful.
It was a little scorekeeper for you, a motivator.
Alcohol and drugs just screwed that up.
So, at what point did you when looking back, do you first think you were going off the rails?
Well, I had some incidents with driving under
the influence.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. You mean police?
Yeah. So,
interactions.
See the lights, feel the heat.
So you're going out and drinking, and you feel like you're okay to drive.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, the thing is once you drink, I drank, so it's not once you, but it's once I.
Yeah.
So once I drank, the drink told me I was okay.
Right.
Sure.
So my best friend and my brother pretty much took my keys, and that, and I'm not a fighter, I'm a lover, but I would get ticked and, want to fight and do. So I really didn't get hitty, but, I can remember I got let go a couple times.
Okay, you got pulled over, and they were like, look, just get right home.
Yeah, my mom's like, where's your car? I'm like, I left it at a friend's house. It was towed to the garage.
But they let you leave without getting charged?
Oh, he took me home and dropped me off at my house.
Wow. Yeah, they used to do that shit back in the day.
So it's almost like you're up on the top of the the roof with the flood, and they're like, helicopter comes by. I'm like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah. Right.
I'm like, it happened a few times in 1988 and 89. Yeah. It ran out. So I don't say the luck. I'm like, my nonsense ran out.
Yeah.
And, I went off the road one time in a town nearby, and the farmer came down with a gun.
Oof.
And then he ended up. I was like, I start, crying and all that.
Yeah.
And it was really serious where he could have shot me.
Yeah.
He could have shot me because I was trying to break into his place to call my first wife.
Oh.
I'm like, I don't know where I am. And it's like, so I got to be a blackout drinker.
Uh-huh. Okay. So tell us about the first time you didn't get let go. What was that like? Yeah,
that was bad because it was in December of 19. Well, it was June 8th of 89 was the first time. So my first meeting was on Founders Day in 1989. So
okay.
I can remember
basically,
that.
After your first GWI?
Yeah.
You went to your first meeting?
I went to the first meeting with my cousin, which,
Yeah,
and,
I actually graduated with John's cousin.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I got high with him a couple of times, to be honest with you.
So he brought me in, and I sat there, and, it was a great meeting, and, I knew it felt right. But
let me just roll back for a bit, though. So you get pulled over, and you get arrested.
Yeah.
Take you to jail.
Yeah.
Shit's real.
Are you thinking, I fucking got a drinking problem? Or are you thinking, I got a driving problem?
Well, I started waking up a lot, looking in the mirror and say, you suck. And so,
self-hatred
it's
in the
like,
mirror
I was like, why
that.
am I, and because I'm really I really possess myself to be positive, and that wasn't the case. So alcohol just beats you down.
And it
so
wasn't
when
exactly translating through.
when I got bracelets on, it was real.
Yeah.
And then I did a little, and the thing was, is I was so close with my sister. She would register and insure my car, and then then I was drinking.
So you're finding ways to circumvent the system.
Yeah.
Like we all do.
Yeah.
I think every guest we've had on has said, "Well, here's what I did."
Yeah.
You don't want to hear something fucked up. And
Yes,
I'm not.
please.
I'm not going to mention any names, obviously, but there is an acquaintance. The guy he holds a professional license as an eye doctor, and he got pulled over drunk. And if you get the felony or whatever, you lose your license.
Right.
And his brother worked for him, and he had his brother's license, and he gave his brother's license to the cop. And they looked enough alike that he got booked as his brother.
Oh, my God.
Oh, wow.
And then he went to his brother and said, I got booked for a DWI, and you're going to have to take it, or I'm going to lose the license, and you're going to lose your job. So the brother fucking took it.
Wow.
He went to court and fucking took it. And I'm like, that is like the ultimate and fucked up. It's like the guy goes, okay, I'll do it. And he takes a DWI for nothing he ever did.
Wow.
And they got away with it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But it is crazy. But, it's along the lines of, I had my sister register my car,
Yeah.
So you're driving without a license?
Bits and pieces.
Yeah,
I
here
think
and there.
we're past the statute of limitations, but
Yeah.
and I'm not proud of that.
Of course
no.
not. We all have
And
things
then, so now when I see something like that happen, I'm the first one to call it out because I did it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you doing? And because the second time, was it was December of '90, and it was 2 days before, the New Year's Eve. It was the 30th or something.
Okay.
And so I went to New Year's Eve. I went to a men's meeting.
Wow.
And that was so now I was like, I am screwed.
That
and
was your second
then it got
DWI?
real.
Yeah.
Then it got real. But everyone's like, certain people you've had on the show and, different people that I know, and they're like, yeah, just smoke weed. That's okay. Just drink soda.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Yeah, I was like, so that didn't work.
So in between your first and your second arrest, were you attending meetings?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So, I vividly remember going to a certain meeting and going past, getting driven there and seeing my former spouse's car at the bar. And somebody was like, you just want to go there, don't you? Just anything to tick me off.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I was like, it's you really, is that the way you do this?
No,
but
it's not,
I still remember it though.
So
So maybe
you
it
were-
was supposed to be.
Did you have some, bits of sobriety in there that first year?
Little bits.
Yeah.
Little bits.
But you still weren't 100%?
No, I did. I can't, it was hard to remember because that was like, let me just do it safely. Let me do it safely.
Right, let me just learn to
do
drink.
And
Control it.
Like the half measured availed me not, it's nothing. You're not that bad. And everyone else that I drank with was really bad.
Right, so you're like, look at me.
As an intellect, I was like, I'm not that bad. I took a class at a, certain school, and it was psychopharmacology. And like, yeah, Carl Jung's doing it,
Yeah.
And I was like, and I got an A in it, and I was like, this is cool. But I couldn't experiment because I was getting sober. Not that I wanted to, but I just was making it. And the last time, 95, it's just happened to be because everywhere I lived was out in the country, and and they say you're either going to a drink or away from a drink.
Right.
And every time I got in trouble, I was either coming to or from a drink or a drug,
Yeah, sure.
So it wasn't like it was, so I, whenever someone says in a meeting, I've never gone out. Well, I'm like, I never was in, so really I never went
Right,
out.
Yeah.
I was like
half-assing it.
like, at least I knew about it, but I was like not in.
All right, you were
Yeah.
trying to be sober,
so
but
that,
it wasn't working.
And I went through a marriage, and it was tough,
Yeah.
So,
So
To handle it all.
you get that second DWI. Do they evaluate you and say, you better look at this alcohol thing? Make sending you to classes, outpatient, anything like that?
Yeah, I had to do the drinker driver program, the impact one, and those are tough because, just like one of your, guests was like, could have been me, So, I was very fortunate, so every time I went to that, it did impact me, but that disease is powerful.
Sure.
So,
right, and we do have good forgetters.
So it's just I forgot real easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was it.
That denial can be a mother. So you get the second DWI, and does your marriage end at that point?
I think that yeah. I mean, every time something happened, because it was more of a shotgun wedding.
Mm-hmm.
You guys know what that is. It's like when you're dating and something happens, and you're like, hey.
Yeah.
Right, we're pregnant.
Gotta get married.
And we had a lot of fun.
Sure.
But it just wasn't based on spirituality. It was based on
fun,
alcohol and drugs.
Right, it was a relationship that was never going to have a long term.
Yeah, and today I still I pray for her. But today I got a beautiful 35-year-old daughter, and I got 4 grandkids. I used to call my ex a certain name, and my sponsor would be like, "Well, who's that?" And I said, "Well, and he says, "Why don't you call her future grandmother of your grandkids?"
Yeah.
So
instead of that name. Right?
Yeah, and I don't want to be saying it on air.
No,
but
cool.
I was just, my thinking was all young and very selfish.
Sure. I mean, they say that when we start drinking, our maturity stops growing, and I know that was true for me.
Yeah.
That when I got sober, I was a 30-year-old dude trapped in the body of a 16-year-old kid,
Right,
and I had to, emotionally, and I had to grow, and it was hard. But so you got through the 2 DWIs on a marriage, and you continue to drink. Yeah,
and I think the screws are in because I had the baby, and what happened when I had a decent job. They put me through an outpatient, and they were like, "Hey, if we ever hear that you go through this again, you're out of here."
Yeah.
So so I moved close to the work, and I didn't go far.
So you moved closer to protect your alcoholism?
I believe that's what it was.
I know. Believe me, you're not alone.
I believe that's what it was.
Yes.
I mean, the only thing I did was go to the store and go to work.
I remember the last bar I always went to was like 2 blocks away from my ex-wife's house, right? When I was living with her. That was my setup. I'll just go there. It's close. I'd only have to drive 2 blocks. What are the chances of getting fucked up with 2 blocks? But,
right. So, and that was it. So I had a jet ski. And I'd always say, a beer, a joint, and a jet ski, and so it's right near the lake, and so, but that kind of, and I went to a neighborhood which is a lot of higher end houses, and there was an efficiency apartment, so I fit right in. Like my ego was built, and I could walk the baby around like I belonged there, but I was broke and almost jobless and licenseless.
So what happens from there? Your disease progresses, right?
Yeah, it does progress, and at one point I moved in with my sister, and there was a beer on keg.
Perfect.
Right in the house.
Oh, she had a tapped keg in the house?
Yeah.
Kegerator.
And,
Kegerator, yeah.
And it was like, that was like the turn of, I remember, we went to a Jerry Garcia reunion concert because he just had passed. And we were really toasted on. My cousins came in from Arizona and Florida. I just remember that summer of '95 was, weddings happening and the jet ski and, the Budweiser outfit.
So you were drinking your face off that whole time.
Yeah, but my mom would always go, "How many'd you have?" "Oh, just 2, Ma."
It's always 2, isn't it? It's like, I know when anybody ever got pulled over and the cops would go, "How much do you have to drink tonight?" "Is it 2 bears?"
Yeah.
That was the standard answer, 2 beers.
Yeah. So,
2 beers after the first 7.
And that's the thing is I started seeing my current wife, and 4 years before I got my last DWI, and so then I was sober 4 more years, before, we just celebrated our 25th anniversary.
Cool.
Went on a Alaska.
Well, she saw some of this,
Alaska
right?
cruise on. We actually
yeah.
had to get the drink package so we could have all the rest of the stuff. And they're like, "Hey, because you're not drinking, you can have all the desserts you want."
Great!
Oh,
It was really cool, but it was like, she took the travel agent, took care. But some really good blessings have happened, so I didn't really want to expound too hard on it. But alcohol takes away, and the steps, you climb, and working through the steps, I was able to not only have great sponsors, and one of them had passed, and then I know I talked to Brett about it, and I said, hey, I'm thinking about asking this guy for my sponsor. He's like, that'd be a good.
Yeah.
So you come in AA and you've got all the stuff that's happened in your past, and do you feel at this point you have the gift of desperation?
Yeah, actually, I ended up leaving my sisters and going to my cousin's ex-husband, and I was friends with him. And it was out in the middle of nowhere. So really, I got further away from my comfort zone. And I went to the first... I have a couple best friends from our small little school, and one of them got married on the other guy's birthday. And so one was June 8th and one was October 8th. And that's kind of the two firsties, and then the other one was on my own. But I went to the party, and I took my honey home and went back, and this is like 35 miles, and then drove back, and it was lights out.
Yeah.
And so I really did say at that point, God, please help me. That was, God, and at that point, before I went to the party, a friend of mine, we were at lunch, and he said, hey, why don't you go to the meeting tonight? I'm chairing. And I go, my ego, I was like, they're letting you chair?
Right.
Yeah,
right, of course.
And, so, there was choices along the way.
Sure.
And I just ignored them. And,
You ignored it.
and that's, so
So
since...
your higher power puts these options in front of you,
Yes,
and then you choose.
correct.
And
But those options
early
are
on,
there.
you chose the wrong time.
Yeah.
You chose the wrong way to go. But later on in life, when you get a little sober, you start seeing those options. You're like, okay, I've been here before. I know what to do now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of coincidences like that.
Now, you talked about the moment when you were like, God, please help me. You know, well, what happened
Where
after
were you
that?
when you said that?
I was on the highway heading towards there, on 48-690 past Fairgrounds.
Yeah. And so you were just having that thought as you were driving? Or,
Oh, no. Oh, when I said, God, please help me?
Yeah.
If you ever been pulled over and handcuffed and it's over, you actually sober up really quick. And I was in the squad car, and I was like completely like, God, please help me.
You knew you were fucked, right?
Well, actually, there was a feeling of, I know I'm okay because I'm alive.
Yeah.
Actually, I know I'm okay now. And ever since then, it's only been getting of course, things happen, like people pass and things happen, but I've only gotten more blessing and love of the world.
So is that your starting point of real sobriety?
Yes.
Okay. So you go back.
So whenever you talk to turning point, it was that last trip back and forth, thinking I was, one day I,
the gig is up.
Love and hate is that close, because one day, I love you, honey, and the next day you're like, you rotten, So in alcohol is that fine line, like you think you have it, and all of a sudden that line is like, you love alcohol. And it's like, come on back, Johnny.
Oh yeah.
Now were you dating, or were you with your current wife at this time?
We were dating. So after that time, she
How
was
did
like,
she handle that?
Oh, that was a done one for a while.
Right.
So that took a little while, and of course, any. You're not supposed to change a whole lot, but I was like back to my mother's basement.
Yeah.
And the sunlight of the spirit coming out of the basement, and so I talk about homelessness. When I lived with my mother, that's and I don't have a mailing address. That's homeless to me.
Me too.
So it's a different level of homeless, but it was like that's as far as I wanted to go. from living under the bridge.
So you start going back to meetings, but it's different this time.
Yeah.
This time you want to get sober.
Yeah. Barney gave me a marble, and he said, "This marble will do till you get more of your own." I still have that marble.
How about
It's on my dresser.
Did you lost your marbles?
I lost my marbles.
And he gave you one.
He gave me one to
with.
get started.
How about that?
So do you get a sponsor?
I got a sponsor, and actually Barney said Keith will be your sponsor. I started talking to Keith for a couple weeks, and I was like, man, you drink too if you were him, because he was nuts, and I was like judging him being nuts, and so Barney was really my first.
Yeah.
And then when I moved out to the new area, I got acclimated with another guy for 4 or 5 years, and then I got Dave, and then Dave passed with 42 years.
Yeah.
And that was we'd go to his house every Friday night and play video games, in our 40s. Or 50s,
It's all part of the fellowship.
It was like we'd play an hour and then talk, or we'd talk and then play an hour, and it was usually Halo or something.
So what was it like working through the steps for the first time for you? I mean, do you remember, second, third step, and
I went to step studies, and at this guy Mike's house. He passed away in a motorcycle accident, but he got sober in 1987, and so I met all the guys there. But we started doing the steps through the Joe and Charlie tapes.
Yep.
And then I would go over it with my sponsor.
Okay.
So I didn't do it traditionally like the way it's was supposed to be done, but I went back and did it. I went to men's retreats and different things. But
so with the first step, obviously, I mean, I don't want to say obviously, but you felt like you were powerless and life was a little fucking crazy.
Yeah.
How did 2 and 3 go?
2, I just put it like, doing the same thing over and over, getting the same results. So that was happening.
And that was a result of you.
Correct.
Right?
Yep. So when I put God in my life, and then so I knew by seeing other people being sober or acting sober, So
and you knew they had made this decision, right?
Right. So that was easy. Then third is will in our lives, So it's attitude and action.
Yeah.
So I had a better attitude and action, and then I put that in there, and then working through the fourth.
How'd that go?
That was tough.
Yeah, right.
But it was a relief, and I did it over several times, so it's not like one and done for me. I was like, hey, I got the rest of my life. Let's, blackout. You remember stuff later, like I did what?
Right. I say that. I asked that because you had mentioned your ego, right? And, and some of those things, we were judging people as soon as we got in the rooms and that. So I was wondering that's why I asked how well that 4th step went for you. That's got to be tough admitting those things and finding those things.
And again, most of it was living the program for a while, but I also, I'm a believer in that you can get right into it. Right into it. So
that's what you did with me.
Yeah. I got into it good, and character defects. I'm always working on them, but I was trying not to swear in this episode.
Oh, jeez. What a lame-o.
No fun. So, but can you talk a little bit about, you're a very social guy.
Yeah.
And the fellowship had to have helped you, just fellowshipping with other dudes, right?
Yeah.
Kinda
the
gets you
confidence
right
in
into
yourself.
Yeah, no, I immediately Barney had me, sharing. It was like he sat next to me and he told me, call on this guy, call on that guy. And, he kind of helped me, but I had no problem. He was like, back then it was clean the ashtrays and, come early. He would come at 6:30. My mom, I'd be in the shower. My mom would be like, Barney's here. I thought that means it's 8 o'clock. And I was like, he wanted to get there early.
Yeah.
And he had cherry cigars, and he was just a great guy. So he was just the right guy, and he was a pigeon farmer. And
really?
So in my hometown. So pigeon obviously is a sponsee from the old timers. We call pigeons, the sponsee is pigeon. So he actually had pigeons and whatever he does. Well, not doves, but
pigeon stuff.
Yeah,
homing pigeons.
Ooh, maybe.
Right.
I didn't even know. All I know is that he had a whole bunch of bird cages, but he said he was the town drunk to the town mayor. And I'm like, well, we didn't have a mayor. He's like, yeah, but I was the town drunk,
the
and then I got the key to the church, made me the mayor.
That's right.
So he gave me a lot of good insight on that. And then when I moved out to this end of town, I can, I just...
You kind of rearranged your purpose.
Yeah. I love helping people, and I love the guys, and whether even the gals, certainly we're all in it together.
Yeah.
Very close with some of the guests were on here.
Oh, yeah.
So I got to mention Gene. He was a big part of my sobriety, and he passed away through COVID. And he'd always say, grow along spiritual lines.
Yeah.
And that was real important. And as far as and then going down to open house and seeing people that I used to drink with.
Yeah.
They would start coming in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they happened to me, too. I was a bartender, and occasionally I would see somebody I served. Yeah. And they would look at me, they would go, oh, okay, you drank more than we did.
Right.
So, yeah, the lucky ones come in. So, didn't you have an incident in your life where there was your brother-in-law or something, there was a fire, and you came to some kind of a realization? I remember you saying something about that.
Yeah, so in 2001, it was November. We're at a state championship football game, and it was actually a semifinal, but either way, we were in the stands, and I heard my sister scream, and I sat there, through about 4 rows down in the bleachers, November night, and I'm like, yep, he did it. He did it.
This would have been your brother-in-law?
Yeah. And so I worked with him, and he was just miserable. And I could not, So I had, I knew he did it. So somehow I remembered my aunt's number. I don't know how. It just come to me out of the spirit of the sky. And I called her and said, hey, go over there, tell the fire department that he's in there. Well, she called me back. He's not. They say he's not in there. Truck's not there. I go, no, his truck's broke down at the Legion. That's if you. So, anyways, that happened. And that really, I went over, and I remember my lawyer the last time I was going through my stuff. She said, why don't you make a case against alcohol instead of why you should drink, and make a case against it. So, I had a old camcorder, and after the fire, and they found him, and it was just
suicide.
Yeah, suicide and burn. It was just awful.
Yeah, alcohol.
Yeah, he shot himself upstairs as he burned the house down, and it was just like if you looked hell on earth, that was it. Because all these kids are like, there's my stepdad.
Yeah.
But I didn't know. I took a videotape of the aftermath, and I never looked at it, but I just figured. One day that could be looked at as a documentary someday, and it'd be like stunning because everyone's life is good and alcohol destroys.
Yeah.
It was awful. So that happened. And,
and another thing too is like when you get sober and you have any kind of long-term sobriety, you're going to see that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They say you're going to step over a lot of bodies. It's true.
Yeah. I've been to meetings where somebody's like, some of the guys we know, hey, one day, and we're like, you're not going to make it, if you don't straighten out, and
they don't,
and then they don't,
and then you go into a wake.
Yeah. And it's horrible watching the parents go through that.
Sure.
So I really wanted to do that for this reason, because if I can touch somebody, I went to Orlando last week, and then I was in Ocala, but I go to meetings, I make it a point to go. I told Brett today, sometimes I go to 2 or 3. If I go to 7:30 and I go to 12 and then I go to, and it's a lot. But I live a full life.
Yeah, you do.
And you know how to keep a wife? Go to meetings.
Right.
Now to keep a relationship together? Go to meetings.
Yeah. And you want to have your kids happy to see you? Go to meetings. When you get home, they're always happy.
Yeah, I think that works 2 ways. One, they get rid of you for an hour.
Yeah.
And then when you come back, you're happy.
And if you can't get away for an hour, then you got to look at your marriage.
Oh, my God. I used to justify that. I'm going to be gone forever. And so everything's going to burn down around me because I'm gone for that long. But it is an hour.
Yeah, it's like going to get milk. But, just come home before Tuesday.
Yeah, right.
And everybody will tell you that I can't think of, more than one or two times that I've went to a meeting and didn't come out feeling better.
Yeah.
Occasionally, you do experience something at a meeting that's a complete fucking turnoff. But be that as it may, that's less than 1% of the time.
Yeah, I can find that when if I'm not spiritually set, But I just came up with it. Sometimes I volunteer for like the roundup or some different things, and I said I'm part of the AA police. And so I sent away to Canton, Ohio, and there was a group selling these little buttons. Yeah. And I'm not trying to promote these buttons; I have nothing to do with it. But if people can't take a joke, then
that was fun when we wore those.
Yeah, I was like, here's some.
What did the button say?
They just said AA police, and it said traditions are important. There's something like that.
Did some people like?
They're
were
like, what's
offended?
that? You think you're so much, and I'm like, come on,
it's a fucking joke, dude.
Because I protect the. I feel like one of the, not the bleeding deacon, but I want to be one of the trusted elders. Not that I'm that old, but when somebody is hoarding a meeting and making it go south, it only takes one bad apple. So you just got to have. I was in Florida, and they're like, if you go over 3 minutes, and I say, what's the point? You're done talking. And then they said, if you crosstalk, you're done.
Yeah,
and I was
directly.
like, and that's
Well, they have those rules in place for a reason.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah,
so, but I don't like all the rules, but there are traditions, and that's why I belong to the Noon tradition.
Well, we do have a certain responsibility to keep AA
and my Lakeshore Heights. So I belong to two groups.
Yeah.
Yep. And but no, it's just been a great life.
Can you tell us a little bit about the rewards of working with other people and sponsoring other people?
That has helped me, so it's very selfish because that way, but I love to see these guys grow, and it also helps me grow when we're all, when we're growing together, So I like right now when I call my sponsor, he's there for me. So I call a couple different guys, but I got one sponsor, and usually, we have some things in common with some mental health in the family. So when I call him, and then sometimes I even call Brett, and I'll be like, "Hey, I'm going through this," and he's pretty rounded on that. So helping each other is important.
And it does turn out to that way after a while, right? So you start off being a sponsor. But after a while, if everything's going right and everybody's
it's a friendship,
that's darn right.
Yeah.
That's I've always experienced.
It becomes
that
reciprocal.
And the thing is, I've always said is that when you work with a newcomer, you basically get the advantage of experiencing their struggle without being on the hook for it. Yeah. So you feel their struggle and you try to give them.
Oh my God! Yeah, because
direction.
Yeah.
But I got to share one thing that. Oh, I hit the table.
That's all right.
I'll tell you. One thing, after my brother-in-law killed himself, I was really going through some, like I was wearing, the whole family was on me, right? And I felt so bad for everybody. But this guy Don, he passed away, Don Lewis, and he took me to Country Pizza, and he said, "John, you're not God," and that stuck with me, because even today, whenever something goes haywire, I just hear Don going, "You're not God. What could you have done?" And I couldn't have done it because he worked with me. You're not stopping him. Who could stop you? I had to have all this stuff happen to me.
Right.
And then, so it's bad when, I have to look back. But I don't look at it shame today because it was like a cancer. It was I got some treatment finally and, chemo. And I had to cut people out of my life.
Yeah.
I totally moved to a new town and started fresh. And when I got my sober apartment, I didn't bring any scales, any papers, anything. It was all a sober. I bought I love boating, so I bought a new boat. It wasn't new; it was new use. I still have the same one today because if you take care of stuff, you keep it. And I just love I love living, you know,
yeah.
and helping, you know, so.
But yeah, you know, when Mark just said about hearing the story without being on the hook for it and all that.
Yeah.
And also being able to tell the other person that was your story. I remember in my fifth step, you know, we were at a marina in Brewerton, right? And I was sitting there, I was like, oh, God, all these things. I did a lot of work to really uncover the stuff in the fourth. But, man, you know, being an only child and having really nobody in my life to ever be able to share anything with.
That was special.
Yeah, I'm going to try and compose myself here. But just knowing that he had experienced those things in great detail, too, that were so similar to me, that's huge. So
as he's going, or just like I did when you're going through your fourth step, I'm like, oh yeah, I did that.
Yeah,
I did that too. Very similar.
You know what's really interesting too?
Very a lot alike.
Is when people come into a 12-step program and they do the fourth and fifth. This may be the first and only time in their lives they've ever told someone else
that's me
all this shit and have been accepted for it, and have somebody say, you're not alone. There's not everybody in life is doing all good things. We've all done shit like this.
Oh my God!
And it's okay. This is a starting point.
But when you've been expected to live a life of perfection, and that's all sitting in you knowing you're not, ugh, man, to finally have that outlet. Oh my God!
And it's all part of the change, you know. And then with 6 and 7, with trying to work on those character defects, you're not going to do it perfect. But you start to feel like, I don't want to experience the results of what
I don't want
these
them
are.
anymore. Goodbye.
Right, I don't want them. It doesn't mean I'm not going to do them.
Nope.
But I know I don't want them.
Goodbye for now.
Yeah, and it means I'm going to work on them. And that's where the change really comes in.
Yeah.
And, you know, the hope is you get to the point where you feel comfortable in your own skin and you have no desire to seek relief in drugs and alcohol anymore. You seek relief in the fellowship and your spiritual practices and, you know, walking the AA life, you know, and that's enough.
Yeah,
you know?
and you know, you're not on the hook for those things, but those things that you did helped me.
Yeah, I love AA. It saved my life.
Yeah.
It really did.
Yeah.
And it is today. You know? And, you know, I think when Mark came in, I remember saying my best friend hasn't come in yet, you know, and Brett came in, and then people are coming in. And it's just such a good thing to see these younger guys, and they start to get it, you know, Mike and different people, you know. It's amazing, you know, to have somebody say, "Yeah, I was throwing snowballs at my wife," and then now help her at a meeting.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
It's kind of like, you know, like remember when you were throwing snow? My wife was throwing beer bottles at my Camaro.
Oh, boy,
it's a real turnaround. Yeah,
not my current one. The old one.
Right. Yeah.
Well, we're at about the end of our time
already.
Here, John.
Yeah,
already,
quick.
It does go quick, but thanks so much for coming in.
Yeah, I appreciate it for sure.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Episode
you having
65. We knew we'd get you.
Yeah.
We'd get you eventually. So until next time on the Glum Lot Podcast, I'm Mark.
I'm Brett.
And I'm John.
As we wrap up another episode of the Glum Lot Podcast, we want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you who tuned in today. Navigating the path to recovery from alcohol and other substances is a journey filled with challenges, triumphs, and self-discovery. Remember, we're not affiliated with Alcoholics Anonymous, but we're here to provide a safe space for open conversations about the complexities of recovery. Your stories, courage, and resilience inspire us and our listeners alike. If you or someone you know is on the transformative journey, know that you're not alone. Join us next time as we continue to explore the diverse facets of recovery. Until then, stay strong, stay connected, and remember that each day is a step towards a brighter, sober tomorrow. Thank you for being part of the Glum Lot community.